Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Ardio Caribe Lights Blue. This watch is available from ardiowatches.com at a reduced sale price of $419, which is €385. Ardio are a well-established microbrand based in Pennsylvania, America, and the Caribe is available in 5 colour options: light blue, gauge brass, isotope green, sunrise orange and gilded black. Of the 5 colour options, I think this light blue version is the best looking. So firstly, let's look at the hard shell travel case that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in this black hardshell travel case, and as you can see on the lid it has the Ardio logo embossed and also automatic. It has a zip securing the lid, so I'll show you the interior. The interior is fully upholstered with a black velour fabric. There's a foam protective panel which you can pull down, and that reveals there's an elasticated web pocket in the underside of the lid, and that houses the accessories which I'll show you. So this padded panel does a good job of protecting watch in shipping, and in the base we have a foam cutout panel which is upholstered with black velour fabric, and also an elasticated strap which is made from lycra, and that does a good job of securing the watch in shipping from moving around, and it's very well protected. So aesthetically pleasing, it's made from plastic vinyl and it is finished to a good standard, good quality presentation, and I think it's a good quality hard shell travel case. So with regards to the items that come with the watch, this is the warranty card, and I'm pleased to report that the Caribe is covered by a 12-month international warranty. On the reverse we have the model Caribe, the warranty number, there's a space to fill in the date of purchase and the serial number, because each Caribe piece in all of the 5 colour options are a limited production run of 300 pieces per colour. So with a watch you also get this spring bar tool, which is made from aluminium and it's black DLC coated to a good standard, has 2 caps which have knurled finishing to them, so you can unscrew the caps from the aluminium body, and in the end you've got replaceable tool steel tips. So at one end you have a 2-prong fork, and at the other end you have a push pin which is useful for removing straps or bracelets from the head of the piece. It's good quality. The 2 screw caps screw onto the body very well, and the quality of the black DLC coating to the aluminium body is very good. So a good quality spring bar tool. Now with the watch, in addition to the beads of ice bracelet, it also comes with 2 straps. You get this vintage tropic style strap which is made from silicone rubber, has the classic vintage tropic textured finish, and on the underside we have the fully perforated and also grid formation to it. 2 sliding keepers which are correctly proportioned, and the buckle and tang is solid 316L grade stainless steel brushed satin finish to the top side, underside and flanks. No sharp edges to it, and if you look closely you can see it is engraved with high definition engraving with the Ardio star emblem, so it's good to see a signed buckle and tang rather than having a sterile one as a cross-cutting measure. So I'll show you the other side to it. As you can see, textured finish to the underside, which has the grid formation and fully perforated design as per original vintage tropic style straps. The top side also has the classic tropic textured finish to it. It's good to see this included in addition to the beads of ice bracelet, because the piece does have a vintage aesthetic and a tropic style strap does fit the aesthetic of the piece, and I really like it. It's silicone rubber, so it's very soft and supple. It's more soft and supple than natural rubber or FKM fluoro rubber, and the only thing I would like to see Ardio do with it is upgrade it to quick release stainless steel spring bars, because it just has standard stainless steel spring bars which are okay, but I think that quick release spring bars would enhance it. So it feels soft and supple, doesn't require any breaking in. Now you also get this genuine Italian leather strap which has a nice cognac tone to it, or honey tone to it. Smooth on the top side, and on the underside it's lined with black leather, and as you can see it's embossed with Italian leather. 20mm tapering down to 16, plenty of holes, so this will fit from a 6-inch wrist up to a maximum 8-inch wrist size, and it's got contrasting white stitching at the spring bar end. It is a thick strap, although it does taper. It's thicker at the spring bar end, gradually tapering down in thickness to the buckle and tang end, so it is going to require some breaking in. Initially it does feel very stiff, but because it's thick, I'm confident it's going to be very durable and robust and last for a long length of time. I'll show you the buckle and tang side. So we have 2 keepers which are correctly proportioned. The first keeper is fixed, the second keeper slides up and down the strap, and again, good attention to detail, because On the underside, it's embossed with Ardio's text logo, and we've got standard stainless steel spring bars. Again, I would like to see Ardio upgrade this or update it to quick release stainless steel spring bars, because that would negate the need for a spring bar tool, because sometimes it can be difficult to fit these without damaging the lugs, scuffing and scratching them, because it can be difficult to depress the edges of a thick leather strap like this without quick release spring bars. So quick release spring bars would enhance it, but I'm confident with daily wear this Italian leather will break in. Does look very visually aesthetically pleasing because it's got a nice smooth tone to it, and I like the cognac tone to it. The tan leather is absolutely gorgeous, so good to get this included. If the beads of rice bracelet isn't your personal taste, you do have the option of wearing the piece on the genuine leather strap, or alternatively the Tropic silicone rubber strap. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, we have a 40mm case diameter, we have a lug-to-lug measurement of 47.8mm, a thickness of 13mm, and a lug width of 20mm. The beads of rice bracelet tapers on 20mm at the lugs down to 18mm at the 2-button push micro adjustment clasp. The micro adjustment clasp is signed to a good standard with high definition engraving of the Ardio text logo. So very well done, doesn't feel sharp, and it's good quality engraving. Beautiful luster to the body, which is brushed satin finish longitudinally, and that complements the longitudinal brushed satin finishing to the flanks. Nice heavy gauge to the 316L grade stainless steel, and also there's a large mirror polished bevel on the edges of the clasp, and that marks the transition between the brushed satin finish body and the brushed satin finish flanks. Two button push triggers are brushed satin finish. They're correctly proportioned, and they've got a nice heavy spring loaded action, so they feel robust. Proportion of the micro adjustment clasp is good, it's not too bulky, and it does provide adequate micro adjustment. We have a boxed top hat style double dome sapphire crystal with AR coating on the underside, and the anti-reflective coating does an outstanding job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the double dome sapphire crystal, and also the dial, which is textured with a sand textured finish, but it has a sheen to it rather than just being matte, and it is very aesthetically pleasing. The AR coating works very well, and I like the dial layout. Now I want to give due credit to Ardio here, because this watch is not an homage, and every aspect of this piece, the case, the bezel, the dial, the indices, are completely original. And I like to see a micro brand at this price point in the low tier of $419 or 385 euro come up with an original design, rather than just making an homage to a Rolex, Tudor or Omega piece, as so many micro brands do. So the teardrop indices, for example, are original. They haven't copied the classic Rolex maxi dial layout or used by Tudor. They simply have come up with their own teardrop indices, and they are very aesthetically pleasing, but as well as being correctly proportioned. I also like the diamond shape index at 12 o'clock, which adds interest. The dial has symmetry because of the absence of a date complication, and I like the textured sand finish, and it has a nice metallic sheen to it which catches the light, and the light blue is very aesthetically pleasing. The black syringe handset is correctly proportioned, and the syringe hands contrast very well with the light blue dial, as does the black applied indices. The 60-minute ticks are high definition and crisp. They're not too thick and blurry, and the quality of the printing to the Ardio and automatic at 12 o'clock is nice and sharp. The font isn't too thick, and at the 6 o'clock position we have just the right amount of information. Just bear with me and I'll move the syringe minute hand out of the way so you can see the text better. So if you look at 6 o'clock, we simply have Caribe in a nice cursive font, and we also have 200 meters in an italic font, and that's just the right amount of information for this piece. Ardio automatic at 12 and Caribe 200 meters at 6. It looks very well balanced. I like the symmetry of the dial, and I like the legibility of it. So the black hands and the black indices contrast very well. The legibility is good. So with regards to the case and the bezel is solid 316L grade stainless steel. Now the thing to note is there is no bezel insert. Rather than using the default option of a ceramic bezel insert or an aluminium bezel insert, the bezel itself is solid 316L grade stainless steel. There is no stainless steel bezel. The bezel is a solid piece rather than using an insert, so that's very good. Good quality engraving, high definition to the Arabic numerals for the second 12-hour scale. And they've also engraved a triangle which is fully infilled with BGW9, as are the indices and the handset. Brush satin finishing is very good. So it's got concentric CNC lathe tool machining to the stainless steel bezel, which refracts the light, and it's coin edge. So nice low profile coin edge finishing to the teeth, and a large mirror polished bevel to the top edge. So the chamfer deletes the tips of the teeth, so it doesn't have any sharp edges, but the coin edge teeth are grippy and tactile. You can get good purchase with your index finger and thumb in order to rotate it. The head of the piece is solid 316L grade stainless steel, brush satin finish to the top of the curved lugs, and also brush satin finish longitudinally to the flanks. Nice fine grained finish to the longitudinal brush satin finishing, beautiful luster to it, and there's also a large curved undercut to the flanks, which is also deburred and chamfered very well. No sharp edge to the undercuts. The angular tips to the lugs have been deburred and chamfered very well. So nice slender profile to the flanks. They're not slab sided, they don't look too thick, and this piece is 13mm, even though it has a boxed top hat profile to the double dome sapphire crystal. Crown guards are correctly proportioned. They do a good job of protecting the recessed crown, and the crown is solid 316L grade stainless steel, coin edge finished. Nice chamfer to it, which deletes the sharp tips to the coin edge teeth, and it's also signed with an engraved Ardio star emblem to a good standard. So let's test the bezel execution. 120 click unidirectional bezel, as one would expect. Nice firm resistance to it. So although it's low profile, it does feel grippy and tactile. You can get good purchase with your index finger and thumb. Very firm resistance. So to put this into perspective, in terms of resistance, it feels very similar to a Seiko 5KX. It's got that heavy, firm resistance. It feels heavier than a San Martin SN017G, which is a Submariner data marsh, or another piece you might be familiar with is the Steel Dive SD1953. They have medium firm resistance. This does feel firmer. It feels more like Seiko bezel action, which I really like. I like the firm, robust feeling of it. Nice fine clicks to the ratcheting mechanism. You can hear the loud audible clicks. You can also feel the click spring engaging with 120 grooves on the underside of the solid stainless steel bezel. No lateral side-side play whatsoever, no back play whatsoever, so it feels nice and tight. Now in terms of resistance, it does feel even all the way through the 360 degrees of rotation. It doesn't get tighter or looser through the 360 degrees. It actually feels even, which is good. I'm just going to check it with my left hand as well. Feels nice. So it feels smooth, heavy resistance to it, but doesn't feel like there's any back play and no lateral side-to-side play. So it does feel good. Now I'm just going to check the alignment. One more click. Perfect. The fully loomed triangle at 12 o'clock perfectly aligns with the 12 o'clock index on the dial and the 60-minute tick on the chaptering. So I want to give due credit to Ardio here, because at the reduced sale price of $419 US, which is €385, this is 10 out of 10 bezel execution. No lateral side-to-side play, no back play, even resistance through the 360 degrees, and perfect alignment. This is an example to other low-tier microbrands of how to get bezel execution correct. I like that it's tight, and I like that it's firm. It feels robust and reliable, so the long-term durability is going to be good. Let's test the screw down crown execution. Solid 316L grade stainless steel coin edge crown, which provides an effective hermetic seal to 200 meters. Silky smooth. Perfect interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. The quality control, build quality, tolerances and machining are all outstanding, and they deserve credit. Minimal number of turns required to fully unscrew it, and the threads mesh very well. They feel very smooth. So when it's fully unscrewed, one can manually wind the Miyota caliber 9039 automatic to its maximum 42-hour power reserve. Nice light resistance to it. One can feel the tension in the mainspring gradually building up. It's a characteristic of premium grade Miyota 9000 series calibers like this 9039. They do have a nice light feeling when manually winding. Feels similar to the Sellita SW200-1, and it feels lighter than the Seiko NH35A, which you may be familiar with, and I like it. It feels smooth, it feels refined, you can feel the meshing of the gearing, it feels low friction, and you can feel the tension gradually building up, so it does feel very pleasant. It doesn't feel rough or gritty to manually wind, it feels silky smooth. So it feels very good to manually wind. Now, the benefit of this being powered by the Miyota Caliber 9039, which is the no-date version of the 9015, is there is no phantom date setting position. And I want to give due credit to Ardio here because, for example, they could have used a date complication movement which is less expensive, such as the NH35A, but they haven't. They've chosen a premium grade of Miyota Caliber, a 9000 series. The 9039 is premium grade. So it's like the 9015, but it doesn't have the date complication. The benefit of that is it deletes the date complication. There is no phantom date setting position. So pulling it out to the first click position is the final click. And as you can see, looking at the second hand with the arrowhead tip, it's possible to hack the movement and set the time precisely to the second. So we're now in the time setting position, and one can rotate the syringe hands clockwise and anti-clockwise. Feels nice and smooth. Again, feels lighter and more refined than a Seiko NH35A. Feels very similar to setting the time on a Sellita SW200-1. It's got that kind of high quality refinement. So lower friction to the gearing, they mesh very well, and it feels smooth both clockwise and anti-clockwise when you cycle through the 12 hours to set the time. I like the lack of the date complication, the lack of the phantom date setting position. Just one click on the crown, not two. Minimal backplay. Again, this is something I really like about 9000 series movements, such as the 9015 and the 9039 respectively. When you rotate the crown, there's an almost immediate response to the syringe minute hand. You don't need to take up a lot of slack as per the NH35A, for example. The 9039 has a very good response. So when you rotate the crown, the minute hand moves very quickly. You don't have to take up a lot of slack. Pushing it back in's got a nice positive click, and that restarts the movement. Again, something I really like about it is it runs at 4 Hz rather than 3 Hz. So with, for example, the NH35A or the lower 8000 series of Miyota calibers, such as the 8215, they run at 3 Hz, which is 21,600 vibrations per hour. The negative of 3 Hz movements is the second-hand stutters or judders around the dial. 9000 series movements like this 9039 run at 4 Hz. They run at 28,800 vibrations per hour. The benefit of that is the second hand has a nice smooth 4 Hz sweep. It doesn't stutter or judder around the dial like a 3 Hz sweep. So it looks good, it's aesthetically pleasing. Let's test screwing the crown back down. Instant thread pickup, this is silky smooth, sublime screw down crown execution. They deserve credit here because this is a low tier piece at $419 or €385. It's an excellent silky smooth screw down crown. Perfect interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. The threads pick up instantly. So refinement is there, quality control is there, build quality, machining tolerances are all there. So excellent bezel execution, excellent screw down crown execution. So let's look at the end links, bracelet and clasp in detail. So beads of rice bracelet, 20 to 18 taper. I personally think it would look more aesthetically pleasing with industry standard 20 to 16, which I consider to be perfection personified, but 20 to 18 is acceptable. Generally speaking, the two industry standards are 22 to 18, or alternatively 20 to 16. 20 to 18 isn't as popular because it leaves more meat on the bracelet. It looks more straight and parallel rather than more taper. I think 20 to 16 looks better, it balances better, but 20 to 18 is okay. So let's just check the articulation. The end links in the beads of rice bracelet articulate well. They don't feel stiff, they don't kink, you don't have to manually articulate them, which is good. They don't have excessive play, longitudinal, lateral, side to side or up and down play. Let's check the other side for continuity. Again, articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, so that's good. Doesn't have excessive lateral, longitudinal, side to side or up and down play. It is good. Now, the benefit of this bracelet is, and I'm pleased to see it, they've used screw pins rather than the cost-cutting measure of push pins, which is good. And the benefit is it doesn't rattle. It's not a sloppy beads of rice bracelet. The screw pins mean it's easy to tighten up the screw pins in the bracelet links and get nice tight tolerances. Articulates freely. No stiff links. It doesn't feel stiff or kink, which is good. Let's check the other side. Again, articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. Doesn't rattle, doesn't pull arm hairs, which is good. No sharp edge to the top edge or the low edge of the flanks, which is good. And on the other side, there are no sharp edges to the top edge or the low edge of the flanks. Doesn't pull arm hair, articulates freely, doesn't rattle. It's good. Finishing is also good. If you look at the outer brushed satin finish links, you can see there's a beautiful luster, nice fine-grained longitudinal brushed satin finishing, and that complements the longitudinal brushed satin finishing to the flanks. So quality of the brushed satin finishing to the flanks, the top side and the underside of the outer links is all very good, beautiful luster to it. Quality of the mirror polishing to the beads of rice centre links is also good. Nice shiny finish, flawless mirror polishing. So they deserve credit because the quality of the finishing is good, and also the tolerances are good. It doesn't rattle, and I like the use of screw pins. Right, so let's look at the micro adjustment clasp. So as I've detailed, it's signed with high definition engraving with Ardio, which is good. 2 button push triggers, a brushed satin finish, nice heavy spring loaded action, opens freely. Now, this is something I want to give due credit to Ardio here. They have pelage finished the solid mil 316L grade stainless steel clasp. Pelage finishing is unusual at this price point. The only other micro brand I've seen do this is Trasca, but that is on a higher expensive piece, a mid-tier piece costing in excess of €500. This is $419 or €385, less expensive than Trasca, but we have pelage finishing. This significantly increases production costs and therefore reduces profit margin per piece for Ardio. Strictly speaking, they don't need to do it because at this price point they could simply brushed satin finish it. But even on the underside, they have pelage finish the underside, which strictly speaking they don't need to do because this isn't part of the clasp that you see on a daily basis. But I want to put this into perspective. Trasca do it on the right hand portion of the underside. They pelage finish the right hand portion but not the left. They brushed satin finish it to cut production costs because pelage finishing is expensive. Ardio don't. They pelage finish it on the left and the right on the underside, and they also do it on the left and the right on the top side. So this does add significant production costs, but they haven't maximised their profit margin by cutting production costs by just brushed satin finishing it. So it's very nice. Nice to see pelage finishing. This is the kind of finishing one expects to see on mid-tier pieces costing in excess of €500, not low-tier pieces at $385. So let's check the hinge pins. Left-hand hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, which is good. Doesn't have excessive longitudinal, lateral, side to side or up and down play. Centre hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, doesn't have excessive lateral, longitudinal, side to side or up and down play. Finally, let's check the right hand hinge pin. Articulates freely, doesn't have excessive play in any direction. No sharp corners to the centre section, which is good. The top edge and the low edge of the flanks have been deburred and chamfered very well, so the quality of the finishing is good. So all 3 hinge pins, left, centre and right, are good. Good tolerances, build quality, quality control. Now, the thing I like about this clasp is micro adjustment. As you can see, it has engraved with adjust and there's a trigger. So firm spring loaded action to it. You can depress the trigger with your index finger and thumb, and it gives 10mm of micro adjustment. So it ratchets, as you can see, nice, heavy, loud, audible clicks. And I'm just going to check deploying it again. So you have to really push in the trigger with your thumbnail or index fingernail with a firm press. That deploys it. It deploys smoothly, and then it clicks in with nice heavy clicks. 10mm is good adjustment. As you can see, looking at the underside, we've got that full 10mm or one full link of adjustment, which is good to have on the fly adjustment. Again, they deserve credit because this is a low tier piece. We're not looking at a mid tier piece costing in excess of €500 here. This is a low tier piece costing $385. So we've got pelage finishing on the clasp. We've also got a micro adjustment clasp and screw pins in the bracelet. No cost cutting measures whatsoever, and it does work very well. The ratcheting mechanism feels reliable. It feels robust. It feels solid. I like the heavy, loud, audible clicks, and I also like the smooth deploying action of it. So it's good. And I think in the absence of half links in the beads of rice bracelet, it is good to have 10mm or one full link of micro adjustment to get the perfect fit. So it works very well, and I like to see it. It's a nice heavy gauge of micro adjustment clasp. Right, so let's look at the case back. Solid 316L grade stainless steel case back, engraved with the Ardio star emblem to a good standard. So it's got a matte background to it and concentric CNC lathe tool machine finish to the star. Around the circumference we've got the specification engraved, and as I've detailed, each of the colour options, there are 5 colour options, this is a light blue version, they are limited edition production runs of 300 pieces per colour. This is number 188 or 188 of 300, so they've each got individual numbers of 300. The specification is engraved around the circumference with high definition engraving, and the outer circumference is mirror polished to a good standard. The milled slots are deburred and chamfered to a good standard, and it's a nice low profile screw down case back. 200 metres of hermetic seal is good specification, and I like that it's not a bubble back case back profile, because the benefit of using the 9039 is it's a low profile version of the 9015, and therefore it's a slender movement. So they've been able to reduce the thickness of this piece down to only 13mm, even though it has a 2mm thick boxed top hat style double dome sapphire crystal. So one would expect this piece to be in excess of 13mm, but it isn't, even though it has a boxed top hat crystal. Flat profile to it, feels very smooth and comfortable against the wrist, so it's comfortable to wear for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day. Now, one detail I like, and Ardio deserve credit, is they've used quick release spring bar levers, as you can see, rather than standard spring bars, so that's good, because that negates the need for a spring bar tool if you want to remove this beads of rice bracelet and fit the tropic strap or the leather strap included. So it's good. Quick release spring bars is good, and the end links are a good snug fit to the head of the piece. The underside to the head of the piece is concentric CNC lathe tool machined, and they've they've chamfered the edges of the undercuts on the crown guard side and also the left hand flank, so it's deburred and chamfered very well. The 4 tips to the lugs are also chamfered very well, so no sharp edges, no sharp corners to the tips of the lugs. Quality of the case finishing is very good throughout. So I'll give you wrist shots and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, I haven't sized the bracelet, and I'm pleased to report this will fit from a minimum 6.5-inch wrist up to a maximum 8.5-inch wrist, and that is with the micro adjustment clasp on its maximum extension. We're now on the maximum 10mm of extension, or 1 full link, and I can easily slide an index finger underneath the bracelet and clasp at all times. So even on my 8-inch wrist, there is enough room on the bracelet to fit up to an 8.5-inch wrist. There are enough removable links on the 6 o'clock and the 12 o'clock side to size this down to a minimum 6.5-inch, so that's good. Now, articulates very well. As I've detailed, I think this would look more aesthetically pleasing and also better balanced if it had a more slender taper. 20 to 16 would look better, but this is subjective. Some collectors might like the extra meat on the wrist of a 20 to 18 beads of rice bracelet. Head of the piece is correctly proportioned. 40mm head of the piece with a 20mm lug width is correct. The bracelet does look balanced. Now, it doesn't feel like a top heavy piece, but it does have heft. That's something to note. It's a heavy piece at 157 grams, but bear in mind that is with a lot of links in the bracelet up to an 8.5-inch size. So if you're removing 5 or 6 links from the bracelet to fit a 7 to 8-inch wrist, that's going to reduce the heft of the piece down to 150 or below. 150 grams is the sweet spot for comfort level to wear a 40mm piece for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day. So at 157 it is above the sweet spot of 150 grams, but I'm confident if you remove 4 or 5 or 6 links, that will reduce it down to below 150 and increase the comfort level. Lug to lug is close to perfection. You'll often know from my previous reviews, I refer to 48mm as the sweet spot. That is the perfect lug to lug measurement, regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7-inch wrist or a 7 to 8-inch wrist respectively. So at 47.8, it's very close to perfection. At 48, it's only 0.2mm too short. So very close to 48, very close to the perfect lug to lug. I like the curved undercut to the flanks of the case because it wraps around the wrist very well. Like a tonneau case, it doesn't sit on top of the wrist like a slab of thick 316L grade stainless steel. 13mm is the perfect thickness for a dive piece with 200 meters. Even though it has a thick box top hat style double dome sapphire crystal which adds 2mm of thickness, it's still only 13mm, so it will easily slip underneath the shirt cuff if you wear business shirts, so therefore it's practical as a daily wear piece. Does feel balanced even though it does have too much meat due to the 20 to 18 taper. The beads of rice bracelet and the micro adjustment clasp feel balanced. They don't feel too bulky or too heavy, and I think they perfectly balance the head of the piece even at 157 grams. I like the clasp. It's not too bulky, it's not too thick, so it doesn't stick out too proud from the wrist, not too wide, and it's not too long. So even if you have a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches, it's not going to be too long and give you overhang on the wrist. If you have a larger 7 to 8 inch wrist, you'll find that the proportions are very good. The length, the width, and also the thickness of it are all very good. 10mm is very good, one full link of adjustment, and it doesn't look too bulky, curves around the wrist very well, has a beautiful luster to it. Beads of Rice bracelet also has a beautiful luster. I like the contrast of the mirror polished beads of rice links in the centre and the outer brush satin finished outer links and the brush satin finished flanks. So Beads of Rice bracelet is comfortable, doesn't pull arm hairs, articulates smoothly, and also if you look at the end links, they articulate very well, they articulate freely, they're not stiff, so they pull very nicely close to the wrist. Feels comfortable, and there's a minimal gap beneath the tips of the lugs due to the curved undercuts. Nice curved profile. I like it. I think feel good factor is good, comfort level is good, and the box top hat crystal gives it a vintage aesthetic. It looks rather like a plexiglass or acrylic domed crystal, but of course the benefit of sapphire crystal is it's harder and more scratch resistant. It really does give the aesthetic of a 1960s or 1970s dive piece with the box top hat crystal and the low profile coin edge bezel. Now I think they should also offer this Caribe version with a dive bezel on it with 15-minute marks, because I think that would also look very aesthetically pleasing. The benefit of having a 12-hour bezel is you can use it to set a second time zone. So for example, you can align the 12 hours with the hour hand, and you can use this like a GMT piece to read a second 12-hour time zone. But I think the Caribe would also look very good if they had the first 15 minutes indexed with minute ticks, and then 15, 30, 45 on the bezel as per a dive bezel, because this does look like a very nice vintage aesthetic dive piece. Right, so let's do a lume test and we'll see how the lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it has not disappointed. So this uses BGW9 Superlume Nova on the triangle, which is engraved and inlaid on the solid 316L grade stainless steel bezel. The applied indices, which are teardrop shaped, and also the syringe handset. Now you can see the exciter in the syringe handset is glowing even brighter than the loomed triangle on the bezel and the applied teardrop indices, and the colour tone match is good. There's a good colour tone match between the triangle on the bezel, the applied indices and the handsets. The syringe handsets are correctly proportioned, because you can see the syringe hour hand is clearly shorter than the longer syringe minute hand, so one can clearly differentiate between the hour and minute hand. And also on the tip of the second hand, you can see it's got an arrowhead tip which is fully loomed with BGW9. So we're clearly looking at 5 to 6 layers on the triangle, on the bezel inserts, and also the applied indices and the syringe handsets. Good colour tone match in all three places, bezel, dial and hands, and the performance is good. The exciter is glowing brightly, and I'm pleased to see that Ardio haven't used the cost-cutting measure as so many low-tier microbrands do, of only using 3 to 4 layers on the dial or hands in order to cut production costs and maximise profit margin per piece. We're clearly looking at 5 to 6 layers on the bezel, the dial and the handset. So it's performing very well. Now, the benefit of this being a no-date piece with no date complication is the perfect symmetry of the dial. So the legibility is good, the orientation is good, because we've got a diamond shape index at 12 o'clock rather than the teardrop shape on the other indices. Also having the rectangles at 9, 6 and 3 give good balance to the dial, but also good orientation, and the legibility is good. The syringe hands contrast very well with the light blue dial in the dark, and you can see the indices are also correctly proportioned, so legibility is good. The triangle on the bezel also is very good. I would just like to see them update this to, or also offer a dive bezel in addition to the 12-hour bezel, because the lume triangle is clearly performing very well, and I think if they engrave the Arabic numerals with a dive bezel format and fully loomed them with BGW9, that would really enhance this piece. So it's good looking and also performs very well, and they deserve credit for not using 3 to 4 layers. This is clearly 5 to 6. Right, so let's discuss the movement use, because it's one of my favourite aspects of the piece. So you'll know from my previous reviews, The Miyota 9000 series are my personal favourite movements. I like the 9015 and I also like the 9039, which is used in this piece. So, to clarify, the architecture of the 9015 is the same as the 9039. The only difference between the two calibers is the 9039 is a lower profile version and Miyota delete the date complication. But other than that, the architecture is the same between the 9015 date version and the 9039 no date version used in this piece. The benefit of it being a no date version is there is no phantom date setting position. So when you pull out the crown, it's only got one click position, which is good. Now, the 9039, it has a low cannon pinion stack height for the handset. So, the benefit of that is, rather than the 9015, the cannon pinion on this piece is shorter, it's lower, and the handset sits closer to the dial, and it also means the double dome sapphire crystal can sit closer to the handset, closer to the cannon pinion, closer to the dial. That improves legibility and it also reduces the thickness of the piece because it means the sapphire crystal can sit closer to the dial and there's still adequate clearance for the second hand. It doesn't foul the underside of the sapphire crystal. So the 9039 has a lower cannon pinion hand stack height, which is the benefit of it. It's a thinner movement than the 9015, which is the date version. It has 24 joules. It runs at 28,800 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 4 Hz. It has hand winding and hacking, which is useful complications, and there is no date complication, which is good. It deletes the phantom date setting position one would get using the 9015. 42-hour power reserve is acceptable, and it's regulated to -10 to +30 seconds per day. However, Ardio, they're based in Pennsylvania in America, they regulate the Miyota calibers they're using themselves in Pennsylvania, and they regulate them to between ±10 seconds per day. So to clarify, Miyota regulate the movements to -10 to +30 seconds per day, which is a rather wide accuracy range, but Ardio regulate them better than that to ±10. This one is running consistently at +2 seconds per day when fully wound to its maximum 42-hour power reserve. +2 is actually within chronometer grade accuracy of -4 to +6. So Ardio regulate to ±10, which is better than -10 to +30. But +2 is outstanding accuracy for a 9039 and certainly well within the ±10 that Ardio regulate their watches to. So, accurate movements, builds quality, quality control, materials, finishing are all outstanding. The 9039 is a premium grade of 9000 series movement. It's the correct choice for this piece. Ardio deserve credit here because they could have used the cost-cutting measure of using the NH38, which is the no-date version of the NH35A. That's less expensive, and they would have maximised their profit margin per piece by doing that, but they haven't. They've taken the more expensive option of using a premium grade of Miyota caliber, the 9039. It's a higher grade of movement than the NH38. So that alone justifies the price point of this piece at $419 or €385. So excellent movement, accurate, reliable, made in Japan, well proven, no negatives to it whatsoever. I like everything about it. The 9039 is one of my personal favourites. I like the reliability, the build quality and the accuracy. So last I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch meet 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So the reduced sale price point of this piece in the low tier is $419, which is €385. I'm going to declare it good quality and I'm going to declare it good value at €385. The Miyota 9039 justifies the price point. The BGW9 is good, AR coating is good, and also I like to see screw pins used in the beads of rice bracelet, which is also good quality. The micro adjustment clasp is also excellent. Now, above all else, the thing that justifies the price point at €385 is the pelage finishing, not just on the top side, but also on the underside. And remember, to put this into perspective, Trasca are the only other micro brand above €500 in the mid-tier using pelage finishing on a solid mill clasp, and Trasca only do pelage finishing on the right-hand portion of the underside. They brush satin finish the left-hand portion. Ardio are pelage finishing the left and the right, on the underside and also on the top side. Even better than Trasca. But this is a low tier piece, €385, not a mid tier piece, €500 plus as per Trasca. So This fully justifies it as good quality and good value. Micro adjustment clasp, Bezel bracelet has screw pins, not push pins. So they deserve credit. Now the other thing is the quality control is good. Bezel execution is excellent. Screw down crown is silky smooth. Excellent. So quality control of this piece throughout, build quality, finishing are all very good. So I'm going to declare it good quality and good value. I'm going to highly recommend it to you for consideration. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Ardio Caribe Lights Blue. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.